Yeah, you gotta like that sound, don't you? I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, who does not look to the proud, to those who turn aside to false gods. Many, Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us. None can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare. And we probably could just end the sermon there, right? That's pretty awesome stuff. Thank you, you two, for being in our world. We are the third Sunday in a series about the Psalms. And one of the things I might mention about the Psalms, just because it hasn't been mentioned yet, is the Psalms are a pretty important part of the Bible. Not only if you're just randomly opening it up to the middle, you'll land somewhere in the Psalms, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. But the Psalms were the original hymn book. They were the original hymn book. In fact, there are still churches today that sing nothing but the Psalms. That's all they sing. They don't even have an organ, let alone a guitar and a drum set. They just sing the Psalms. But a little bit of a history lesson. The idea is that the Psalms are to be performed under the direction of the director of music. So I'm a little partial to the Psalms. I even added that in on page 5 in your bulletin. It'll say, for the director of music. So it's just this idea of instructions and how to lead a worship service, which is pretty cool. Good to have an instruction manual, right? Now, David came to be regarded as the writer of the Psalms, just as Moses was the writer of the law of the Old Testament. Solomon was known for his wisdom. David was mostly known for the Psalms. So I'd like to kind of dig into it a little bit, break it apart, tell you a little more of my story and how that all works out. Starting with just the first line, I waited patiently for the Lord. Patience is a word I have had to learn very much in the last 3 years. I have a 3-year-old who we're potty training right now. Patience is hard to come by. And here it is right off the bat. I waited patiently. I waited patiently for the Lord. Now, a lot of you might have noticed I have tattoos. Most of them you can't even see. However, the first tattoo I ever got said Psalm 40. No, I didn't actually write out the entire psalm. That would be pretty crazy to have a tattoo with the entire psalm. But Psalm 40, I got that when I was 18 years old in Mexico. And I thought I knew everything then. I thought I'd had a pretty rough life up till 18. I thought, okay, finally things are going to get better. God's given me this gift of music, and he's put my feet on a solid rock, and here I am to perform and do God's music for the rest of my life. Psalm 40 makes so much sense. You don't know anything when you're 18. Funny note about that tattoo, it was the first tattoo I got. It was here. I've since covered it up, but at the time, I'd come back from Mexico, not feeling that great, and I was sleeping at my parents' house, and I woke up to my mom. She had licked her fingers and was trying to rub the tattoo off my leg as if somehow it was just this marker thing that I'd put on there. Mom not so approving of the tattoos at the time. But my life has been a roller coaster, really, from the beginning. And I'd say 18 was just the start of that. I even since returned to Mexico. I lived out of the back of my truck on a beach in South Padre Island, Texas, near the Mexican border. My life has been crazy, and I've shared some of those stories here, but I haven't even looked at Psalm 40 that much since that time. For something that I was so passionate about to mark on my body, you're now getting hopefully a good message from looking at this text for the first time in many years. Let's look at the next part, the muck, the slimy pit. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. Mud and mire. I also like some of the other versions of this text call it the miry clay. But take a look at this picture right here. Now, she looks cute, I realize. This is a little less than a year ago. Now, I made the mistake of allowing my wife to buy me some very expensive sunglasses, which you can see there in the picture. More importantly, behind that cute little family is a pond of water. That's at Vizcaya. How many of you have been to Vizcaya? How many of you have jumped into those ponds? Oh, good thing. That's a good thing. So not 10 seconds after this selfie was taken, that cute, adorable little thing pulled those sunglasses off my face and threw them into the pond. Now, I wanted my sunglasses back, so I reached in, no bottom. Pretty gross water, I gotta tell you. So I went and found somebody who worked there. I said, here's what happened, haha. And he just looks and says, yeah, those are gone. Evidently, that small pond of water is already about 6 feet deep. Now, that'd be about here on me. I could maybe jump into that, maybe find him. But below that 6 feet of water then is another 2 feet of muck and mire and slimy pit stuff. The gunk. Those sunglasses are never coming back. Don't ever jump into the ponds at Vizcaya. You will get stuck in the muck and mire. Here's another pic. This is me in Honduras and some of our friends in Honduras. We just came back a few weeks ago. I'm standing on what was a huge pile of clay. Some of those guys in the picture and some others, we moved that pile probably from the distance of about here to about here. We didn't have a wheelbarrow. All we had was a couple shovels and a couple buckets. We learned hard work. We learned what muck and mire meant, just fully tangible, heavy, hard clay. We were really afraid the next day they'd tell us to move it all back. Fortunately, they didn't. But this is, you can see there in the picture, and we're going to talk to you all about Honduras a lot more in the coming weeks. But this is an addition we put onto a school. Some of that muck and mire became the clay foundation to that addition in the classroom. And despite how tired those people look in that photo, that's a great picture of Jim. Wow. It was well worth it. Well worth it to work in the muck and mire. But what I like about the words miry clay is something you can mold. When we are stuck in that muck and the mire, yes, we're waiting for God to come and actively put our feet on a solid foundation, but we are being molded as clay in that clay. We all are. It's part of our story. And it's a process. It's not a one and done, as I used to think Psalm 40 was. It's not like okay, God pulled me out, set me down, everything's peachy keen from here on out. It's always a process. We have great days where we're praising God. We have some not so great days in the muck and mire where we're still praising God. In And the thing about that, too, is that we're all at different spots. Each and every one of us. This is our story. This is God's story. This is the story of Israel. This is our story. But while I may be having a good day with my feet firmly planted with a song in my mouth, you might not be, Joanne. You might be here in this muck and mess, right? Now, some of you guys are always having a good day, I realize, but you get the idea. If you think of this in waves, everybody's wave is in a different spot. And we all have different stories, and we're all telling each other different stories. The story of Psalm 40. Not only do we have a story to tell, we have a song to sing. If you look about a third of the way into the psalm, he put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. He put a new song in our mouth. Back to the U2 story. Nobody had heard anything like that in the 80s. That's what I love so much. Yes, it's a quality album that I will play forever and ever. I've introduced it to my daughter. It's one of the greatest albums of all time. But it was new, and I love that. I love trying to find new ways of doing things. That's why most of my favorite musicians, most of you have probably never heard of, because I like to find those weird, obscure people that are doing new and different things. So I want to talk just briefly about this idea of being a producer. Being a producer. In my mind, when I took the role of worship director here, I thought of it more as this idea of a producer. And actually, the best place for a producer is back there in the sound booth. And I'm hoping to get back there someday. Probably some of you are going, yeah, we really wish you were still just back there. But the producer hears what's not there. They hear what's there, but they also hear what's not there. Now, let me give you an example of that. This is like a 2-minute video clip. It's from the movie Begin Again. And when it starts, you'll see a guy leaning his head on the bar. He's had a rough time. He's a music producer. He's just lost his job. And he's hearing this song for the first time. But this will give you a better example of what a music producer does.
Here comes the train upon the track. There goes the pain. Cuts to black. Are you ready for the last act to take a step? You can't take back. Taking all the punches you could take. Took them all right on the chin. Now the canvas back is breaking again, again, for what it's worth. Here comes the train upon the track, and there goes the pain. It cuts to black. Are you ready for the last act to take a step? You can't take back. Did she love you?
So it kind of gives you a cool idea. Isn't that fun? Like that he sees, he hears what's there, but he hears what's not there. Now, so many people in Miami with a laptop think they're either a DJ or a producer. One of the clear signs of a good producer is they're absolutely miserable all the time. That's why I'm wearing pink, to just try to be a little more bright today. But no, it's because you can't really enjoy music on some levels, because you're always just breaking it apart and thinking of things and thinking what could be there. But then on another level, producers can actually enjoy music on a deep, deep, deep level. I get to work every week with a committed group of people that are so talented, and I'm so glad for that. These people meet every Wednesday night. They help me out. They deal with my tantrums. They deal with me saying, no, let's do this. Let's try this. But one of the things I love to do, one of the things I love to think about is that together we create something far better than we would apart. And it's a privilege to work with these people. Hopefully it's a privilege for you to get led by them in worship each and every week. I've talked a lot about myself. I'm going to do one more shameless plug here, because what I'm going to do is turn this to God a little bit. But here's just one more thing. Yes, I'm a music critic. Yes, I fancy myself as a producer. But when it comes to this, 1, 2, 3. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river. I got peace like a river in my soul, in my soul. I got peace like a river. I got peace like, I got peace like a river in my soul. Yeah, that's adorable. It's adorable, but believe me, when I hear that, there is nothing more beautiful. There is nothing more perfect than my 3-year-old worshiping God with me. And you know what? That's how God works as a producer. God hears what's there, but God also hears what's yet to come. Here's what could be. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to God. I love this scripture. I thank my God every time I remember you in all my prayers. For all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. That's God, the producer, at work, at its best. And if you juxtapose that with the remaining part of our psalm, verse 5, many, Lord my God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us. Oh, it's so good. None can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, there would be too many to declare. And we can spend the rest of our lives singing new songs, and it still won't speak to the goodness that is God. You will hear me say this time and time and time and time again, as long as I have a microphone. You are part of God's story. You are part of God's story. I am part of God's story. Tim is part of God's story. We are all part of this story. The story that it's too much to even declare. But we got to keep trying. We got to keep telling the story. We got to keep singing these songs. God hears what's there. God also hears what is not there. God hears the cries of those children on the border. God hears it. He hears it. They are made in his image. They are his beloved. He knows what's there. He knows what's not there yet. And that's our job. Because when God hears the cries of children separated from their family, his heart breaks. And so should yours. Your heart should break. No matter where you land, when a human is separated from another human, your heart should break. I bring it back to Bono, good old Saint Bono. I always love his quote. He says, "Don't pray for the hungry child to be fed. Go feed the child. Be the prayer. Be the prayer." Tell your story. Hear somebody else's story. And really listen. Really listen to somebody else's story. Hear what's there, but give voice to the people that don't have a voice. be the prayer for those that are in the mire and the muck, and those that are standing firm. Be their prayer, be their voice. Amen. We're going to move into a song that was written by U2. This song's actually like 12 minutes long. We're only going to do maybe 90 seconds of it. But the psalm is called 40. So as the ushers come forward to collect our offering, I would invite you to listen to these words from Psalm 40.